Hello, I'm Massimiliano Gori. I'm the security product manager here at Canonical, and I'm joined by Devin Breen, our lead for US federal enterprise sales. Today, we're going to talk about open source security and what are the things to consider when you want to adopt open source in your enterprise, and also how do we think about the topic at Canonical. So, open source software, shall we use it or do the benefits outweigh the risk? What we see, as well as our partners, is that everyone loves open source. And companies are not only adopting it at an increasing faster pace, but they are also contributing to it. It's also important to note that the number one driver is not the reduction in cost, but rapid access to innovation. The flip side of the coin is that especially after the Log4j and the APM Max, everyone is concerned. And the single most important problem, at least to us, seems to be the lack of skills around open source security and handling open source in general, resulting in security vulnerabilities and misconfigurations. What do we think about the opportunities and challenges around open source security? And how should companies position themselves from a security perspective? We believe that all software is equal, and you should look at open source security in the same way that you look at every other software in your portfolio. So if we take the NIST cybersecurity framework for reference, you need to make sure that you have solid controls in all areas of the lifecycle of a security incident. But where does Canonical really play a role? So we are not a security vendor, and we don't necessarily directly sell security solution, but we recognize that as the first link of the software supply chain, we play a huge role in making sure that you have the best possible protection. Through Juju and our charmed operator framework, we also play a role in making sure that you can recover quickly and reliably from an incident. Having said that, we don't stop there. We might not sell security ourselves, but we work with security pure plays to make sure that Ubuntu and our solution are represented well in all the security detection and response tools that you might be already using in your enterprise. Now, let's double click into each one of those areas and let's have a look at our proposition. Let's start with prevention. So Benjamin Franklin famously advised the fire threat of Philadelphia in 1736 that an ounce of prevention is worth more than a pound of cure. Security operation teams are often understaffed and under-resourced, and therefore it's crucial that they focus their attention on putting off the big fires rather than actually looking at the smoke signals to understand where the fire is. The best way to enable that is by building a healthy and resilient systems that are vulnerability-free. But as we all know, however, implementing a consistent hardening and security and patching strategy is one of the most difficult things for IT teams to get right, especially smaller ones. And that is why, when you look at the way companies normally protect their infrastructure, they tend to focus only on the top layer, which is good, but just like in a game of Jenga, if you remove a brick from the top of the tower, the tower might fall. But it is when you remove a brick from the bottom of the tower that effectively you dramatically increase the chances of the entire tower toppling over. The reality is that, especially in open source, everything is connected. And as we all know, security fails at the interfaces. That is why you need to adopt a defense-in-depth approach and focus on confinement and isolation, because you don't want the attack to spread at all the other different layers. At Canonical, we make all those design imperatives, all those premises a design imperative for our products. And we have to, because we have more than a product in each one of every layer of the stack, from the operating system with Ubuntu to the infrastructure with our Kubernetes, Micro-K8s, OpenStack, and XD offering, passing by containers and VMs and managed applications and operation services like Maz, Landscape, and Juju. We have it all. And we need to make sure that our products are secure on their own, but effectively they work even better when they are combined together. So now let's have a look at what this means layer by layer, and now do we make sure that we adopt consistent security across the board. So Ubuntu, we see Ubuntu as really the foundation for all the things that we build on top of it. For over 15 years, it has benefited from our security commitment. And with products like LivePatch, we make sure that applying security updates is easier than ever, effectively removing the need to update the machine whenever there is a kernel patch. We've also invested a lot to not only make sure that we bring automation to hardening and crypto compliance, but also that is very easy to apply and to audit for, thanks to the Ubuntu security guide and landscape. And finally, with Snaps and AppArmor, we put a huge emphasis on service isolation, making sure that should something go wrong, everything is contained and doesn't escape to other parts of the operating system or the infrastructure. This year, we've also introduced Ubuntu Pro, which takes the concept of security maintenance to a whole new level. Historically, we were offering security supports for all the packages in main, which are 2,300 packages. That has been true for all the versions of Ubuntu, and you were getting this for free for 5 years. With ESM, or Extended Security Maintenance, we extended the level of support to a total of 10 years. However, what we've done this year is extending the scope from the 2,300 packages in main to all the 23,000 Ubuntu Universe packages. What does this mean is that no matter what you're running, as long as it comes from a canonical repository, we're going to find or produce a fix whenever a new vulnerability is disclosed, test it for compatibility to make sure that nothing breaks in the OS, and then release it so that you can seamlessly update all of your infrastructure with one single command. Now, our 10-year commitments does not only cover products that are officially supported by the community, but also extends to projects that are auto-support. This is, for example, the case of Python 2. So Canonical with 1804 will support Python 2 up until 2028, even though Python 2 went out of support in 2020, meaning that whenever a new CVE is disclosed, we will either port a fix from a subsequent version of Python 3, or we will produce a fix ourselves and then make it available for everyone to consume. Now, moving on to the infrastructure layer, like here, we are really talking about our virtualization layers, so Kubernetes, OpenStack, and LXD. And what we have there is that all of our proposition actually come with secure defaults, meaning that our distribution preventative controls like CIS out of the box. We also invest a lot in automation. We don't just provide the tools and the scripts and the operational software to install that infrastructure, but we make sure that we also encode all of our operational knowledge in software to make sure that we handle also all the day-to operation, like the scaling, the backup, the recovery of the infrastructure. And finally, we invest a lot to work with partners to make sure that all the security integration, like policy management or secret management, are a first-class citizen and are able to integrate with all the products that we offer. And finally, on the container images, we offer the same level of security support that our VM images can benefit from. So that is the very quick security fixes and 10 years of security support. Earlier this year, with CISO, we've also launched a new effort to make sure that we can build minimal Ubuntu containers. So containers that still have the benefit of using a distro, but then have a greatly reduced attack surface area by effectively chiseling away or removing all the dependencies and packages that might not necessarily be used by the workload. And an early example of that are the .NET containers that we have launched in partnership with Microsoft. And finally, all of the images that we provide on Docker Hub and as well as on specialistic containers like a container registry like the one by the DoD are CIS hardened by default to make sure that we already minimize the attack reduction. As I said before, we don't just create a great protection layer, but we also work with all the major security vendors to make sure that Ubuntu is represented well in the solutions that they offer. So from cloud-native security providers like Aqua to the security agents of all the major clouds, passing by the infrastructure vulnerability solution like Tenable and Qualys, we make sure that they are aware of the way Ubuntu works under the hood so that they can surface easily not only when things are going wrong, but also what are the remediations that you need to apply. Especially, and many of these solutions are also aware of the Ubuntu Pro offering and all the fixes that are available for that. And finally, I wanted to address the recovery part. So when your team is deploying application across virtual machines, Kubernetes, hybrid cloud, multi-cloud, it's easy to get lost in a sprawl of YAML file, charts, receipts, playbooks, plans, scripts, or whatever your team might be using. That creates a very big problem when you're hit by an unfortunate security event and you need to recover quickly. Juju is software that drives other software. It helps you to take control of all your application, infrastructure, and environments, and you will use it to effectively save your team endless hours of script management while minimizing the attack surface area by effectively having less people to access your environment, ensure consistency and resiliency, meaning that you will be able to deploy the same environment over and over again, monitor all the activity across all the different substrates, and finally minimize the chances for human errors, which we all know being one of the leading sources of security breaches. With Juju, especially and on the recovery side, you will move away from manual configuration management to automated application management. So I would like to pass it on to Devin that will tell you how can you benefit from Canonical security offering.
Thank you, Massi. Open source is everywhere today. Over 99% of analyzed code bases today will contain open source software. And 3 out of 4 of those code bases will contain a vulnerability. And that's why it's more important than ever today with the open source supply chain and supply chain risk to secure your open source environments. And from a Canonical perspective, how can you benefit from our security offering? For the purposes of today's discussion, we can think about 3 different segments: ISVs and embedded users of the Ubuntu operating system, enterprises, and public sector customers, including DoD and federal agencies, and VARs and system integrators who are providing downstream services in the ecosystem. From a ISV perspective, there are a number of important elements that Canonical can provide to our partners. Number one, security support for the embedded software so that you can deliver your software with SLAs, with the reliability that they would expect over a deployment lifecycle. Additionally, Canonical partners with all of the major cloud providers for custom images for performance and maintainability. And we do this so that we have reliable, consistent experiences across clouds. And we provide these same optimizations. We extend that security maintenance and support to embedded providers, whether they're SaaS, infrastructure as a service, or platform as a service providers for the various elements of the Ubuntu operating system. And we also allow our ISV partners to embed and distribute our software with secure, minimal infrastructure solutions, microservices implementations like micro K8s, even providing containers and FIPS libraries within those containers for environments that are portable across Kubernetes infrastructure across clouds. And finally, we provide our ISV partners with level 2 support so that they can extend support to Canonical through their partner ecosystem. For VARs and system integrators, we partner extensively and ensure that they have security support for their clients' critical software. This is all enabled through the Ubuntu Pro ecosystem, which enables those bit streams to be available for security updates. And what's really important for our customers is to be able to access Ubuntu anywhere in the world. And so we have global distribution channels established like Climb and SHI, and are certainly always opening new markets and new channels. Canonical is in almost 70 markets across the world with employees, and we're available almost everywhere. And so today we also provide a number of managed services and private cloud solutions for those system integrators, really providing public cloud reliability and dependability, managed operations with private cloud economics. And importantly, having meeting those data residency requirements that are so important to their end users, whether that's a FedRAMP requirement or other security standard that is required for your high governance deployment. For enterprises and the public sector, it comes down to having a secure foundation and at the bottom of your Jenga tower, which is your app stack, as Masi mentioned. And for those customers and for those partners, providing consultancy, training, and integrating to be able to support their workloads across private clouds, hybrid clouds, and private cloud implementations is very important to streamline operations and provide zero touch management for the infrastructure and applications, which certainly can be done through Juju and other automation frameworks. The important thing for folks a lot of times is to not just buy technology, but to upskill on capabilities. And our enablement services allow us to quickly prototype and rapidly deploy IoT devices, infrastructure, and other edge capabilities with playbooks for consistent delivery and a delivery model that you can do 1,000 times over on one machine or many. And finally, whether you're a public sector agency, a commercial entity, a system integrator, or a VAR, we work to provide downstream our consulting and enablement services and managed services, which include things like private cloud, OpenStack, and Ceph, where we manage the security, maintenance, and the update lifecycle across your deployment. And all of Canonical's deployments come with a 10-year promise to maintain that operating system for each new version that we release. And additionally, enablement services have become more and more desirable in order to distribute knowledge throughout an organization and quickly upskill organizations that are now transforming from monolithic applications to perhaps microservices and container development. We work very closely with those organizations, and we can deploy private clouds, microcade solutions that allow you to get comfortable, work with us for 3 weeks, and hand off the keys to your engineering team so that you can take that away now knowing precisely industry best practice around that particular deployment. One of those being Active Directory integrations. Additionally, for our public sector customers, governance and security go hand in hand with this, the STIG requirements. And so we can work closely to design our requirements or the implementation of the operating system and the components, including Kubernetes, to meet your high governance requirements. And for those customers who also require FIPS or CIS benchmarks, we can do custom implementations and enablements that you can use again and again across your server infrastructure, your desktop environments, and your cloud environments.